Well, the desperate state of formal education in Nigeria and the continually diminishing access to opportunities for quality learning has over time emerged as a direct product of poor policy formulation and implementation in that sector. Simply put, a continuous stream of young Nigerians of school age can no longer afford education. And that's where our next conversation will lead us to. For that, we're now being joined by Damny Feyide, who is the team lead, strategic partnerships at Providus Bank. Damny is also the founder and CEO of Let It Shine Academy, an NGO that has directly impacted the lives of more than 500 children and youth across Nigeria. Good morning, Damny. Good to have you on the morning show today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right. Let It Shine Academy. Is that about the song, I'm going to let it shine? Or... All right.
So yeah, that's part of it and where it came about because, like you said earlier, it's just every child, has that light in them, and this is an avenue and a platform for them to let it shine. It's creating that access for them. So it's in line with that song very much so.
So tell us what it is about in terms of your interest in undeserved, communities, people who do not have, young ones who do not have access to quality education. How did the old dream start, and what have you made of it over time, the Let It Shine Academy?
So, Let It Shine Academy is an intervention organization that provides children access to free and quality education. I always say free and quality, they have to go together. It's not just free education and then, quality is a different story. I think for me, it started when I moved back to Nigeria and just seeing the amount of kids, during the day, morning, night, afternoon, they're just kids on the road. So for me, I know in another country, I was coming from the UK, where if my sister misses a day of school, they are calling my mom, what do you mean by she's not in school? It's a big deal. They're not, and for me, they were just there. Then you give them 200 naira, 500 naira, they're still there the next day. So it showed that wasn't even the solution. So for me, it was actually the actual solution, and that's where education came in. But before education, it was more informal education. So what can they do with their hands? So if they're not even in school for one reason or other, what can they do with their hands to actually give them jobs? Is it how to make hair? Is it how to make beads? Is it cooking? Just things like that. So that's pretty much how it started, first of all, as an informal creative academy. Then obviously, the more I did that, the more I was understanding what the public school education system was like, why kids went in school, what was causing the dropouts, what was causing, I'm not even going to school at all. And that's where that desire to change kind of started from. I also did a course with Harvard on children's rights and childhood protection, knowing that I started working with kids. And one of the modules were children in contact with the law. So for me, I entered like a deep dive. What happens to children in contact with the law in Nigeria? And I found the Correctional Center for Boys. And again, I realized that they had access to primary school education, but not secondary. So the government doesn't provide secondary. Once you're done with primary 6, you just see the boys roaming around the center. And these boys are meant to come out of the center to become good citizens, but then they're not educated. So if a boy that's been there for 10 years comes out, no education at 24, what happens? So we're also creating a cycle for ourselves in Nigeria that is just, going to end up, really devastating. So for me, those were marginalized people who, for one reason or the other, couldn't afford it and had no one to advocate for them. So now my school has over 50 children from different correctional centers across Lagos. Then again, marginalized are the children on the road, the children that are hawking, that are working instead of being in school, that are begging instead of being in school. We have a lot of students who lost their parents, who are soldiers from barracks as well, because maybe their dad has passed or their mom has passed. There's no one there. So in 2021, I kind of transitioned it from this informal school to an actual secondary school, where it's a free secondary school where they don't have to worry about school fees. They don't have to worry about textbooks, exercise books, uniforms. So it's completely free for the kids. And they come to our school. It's currently in Yaba. Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 4 p.m. Well, registered with the Ministry of Education. It's a normal free private school. The only difference is it's completely free for these specific people.
Yes, and now you have built a boarding school, I believe, or you're moving to a boarding school. You're expanding the school, and you've spoken very passionately about marginalized children. I think this is going to go to the heart of a lot of people because, as you said, some of these people have parents who have served our nation and died. Yeah. Some of these children have been rescued from the streets. I also have been to some of these homes in India, but the girls' home, and and they lack not just skills, but education.
Yeah.
Now that you're growing, Lisa, how are you able to actually do that? And what are your goals beyond just educating them now? Do you believe that you're filling a gap to maybe position these children for a better life after Lisa Academy?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the point. It's obviously these are the things that are going to get them there. I think we're looking at the end from the beginning. We're trying to raise the next generation of lawyers, doctors. Now, universities are possibilities for all my kids when it wasn't. Like I said, we have 50 kids from correctional centers who they're after the correctional center. A lot of them don't even have parents. They're probably going to go to remand homes or just figure it out. But now, I know the first person that I have, he's actually in SS2 now. Next year, he's going to write WAEC, and he's the head boy of our school. When I met him almost 5-6 years ago, it was in a correctional center in Oregon. But now he's gone past the center. He's our head boy at the school, and I think it really just shows, again, that there is so much light and there's so much hope and that progress can be made. And yes, we're moving to a boarding school because I also believe that beyond just what we're doing, academically for them and education, right? It's just even their behavior. We now can ensure that all of them are eating, because that's something that we didn't. A lot of them don't eat, or when they get home and food did not reach me, they don't have access.
While they're in school, that's what you mean.
And even at home.
Oh.
Yeah, because a lot of these parents are really struggling. A lot of these parents are in the market till 11 p.m. By the time they come back, maybe there's just no money or they just forgot. And you see there's a lot of neglect because people are actually suffering. I remember there was a day I called a parent in because the child wasn't doing well. She had failed first term, second term. So I called her like, Mommy, that there's what is happening? And she goes, I can't focus. I don't check out. I don't care because her rent was due. And for last year, she had never, and then it was due again for this year. So for her priority was, and her rent was like 80K for the whole year. So her priority was just trying to make ends meet. She sells water and minerals on the road. So and she's a single mother. So she was like, my priority is not this girl's education. So I think that's where Lisa has also stepped in. Even I always tell my staff that we're parents, we're supporting families, but then for a lot of kids that don't even have parents, I have a girl that was rescued from the north. She was meant to be married at 12. But now, one woman was kind enough to rescue her. And then instead of her just, serving domestically there, she's now in school. She's going to SS2 as well. So I think we're also standing in the gap in a lot of ways for them. I think even providing stability as well. I think that's why boarding was really important. And a lot of these kids, they leave school right now, or day school, they leave school and they're going to work. Or they are the parents in their home taking care of their younger siblings, on Okada dropping and picking up their younger siblings. So they don't even have time to really read and do homework because there's so many distractions that they're burdened with. So with it being boarding now, we have their full attention.
Definitely.
We have
Absolutely. Damny, this entire conversation just takes me back to a story that I read yesterday that borders on child labor, how a young boy, and this is a real story, a young boy who used to serve in a home, eventually he was kicked out by the parents for not doing anything. But the point is, say 15 years later on in life, he ended up being the medical doctor that saved the child of that home. The woman, she ended up with fibroids and he ended up well. And it was as a result of an effort like what you're doing, and this time around it was a church that was doing it. So I want us to speak about this from the perspective of child labor. There's a lot of people who have madams, not necessarily mothers. In this case, you spoke about a child whose mother said she didn't have time, but there are also children who are hired as nannies, as caregivers, who really don't even have an option, or there's no chance of them having access to these things because they're working. And then there's also the ones on the streets living in Lagos. You often find them tapping on your glass. How do you deal with kids that are of this background? How do you know, okay, this is the case? How do you even break them out of this kind of arrangement in the first place? So the ones who are on the streets, how do you get to them?
I think I engage with them. That's the first thing that I did. So my current SS2 set, I met about 60 to 70% of them on the street. Either I met them or I met their parents on the street. And I think one thing I really learned is really getting into it with them, with them or their family. I think if you separate yourself from it, they won't even trust you. So I think earning their trust. First of all, letting them see and understand that I'm actually here for you, advocating for you. And it's one thing to say it, but then I think the beauty, I think with Lisa and what we've been able to do is we've actually proven that, right? And then I always tell my kids that I can want the best for you, like with everything in me. But if you don't want the best for yourself, it's going to be difficult because there's that misalignment. So that's where us engaging them. And I think one thing we've also done is I believe in partnerships and collaborations. And we work with a lot of people. Every Tuesday we have a guidance counselor that comes to school, to really, especially with these kids you're talking about, to really work with them because their backgrounds, it is unlike anything we've ever really heard, to be honest. You hear kids that have bounced from police station to remand home to Oregon, like so many things. So I have a guidance counselor that works with them. I also work with them personally. And if it's a random day, I just buy them pizza. I buy them donuts. So I think also acts of kindness and love because you're really breaking down those walls. And I think I also show them what is possible. So every year I have like a career day where I get my friends who are, maybe someone's a doctor, an artist, everyone should just kind of come and tell their stories so they can also see what is possible. We take them on excursions. I took our current SS1 set to Pan Atlantic University a few months ago to just show them this is what university life looks like. This is what's possible. And with that, we're able to get scholarship places for a few of them as well if they meet the required grade. I think showing them what is possible is so important. Not, play on words, but light, that there is light. Because a lot of them have been stuck in this cycle. They don't even see another way. So showing them that there is another way, I think that's what changes everything. I think I used that boy who was in correctional center. I'll use him as an example again. When I met him, again, similar to you, he was from Ondo State. His dad had signed off parental rights, kicked him out, and that's how they saw him on the streets and put him in the correctional center. Then when I started coming to teach them math and English, right, I think for him, he always just said he had a dream of being a son. He wants to be a son, when he grows up. And he does, yeah. Wow. And now he's like, I'm actually getting access to education. And he started to see there was a way. So when the Oregon actually released him, he had nowhere to go. So they're going to transfer him to a remand home. But he came to me and said, this thing I've started, I don't want to stop. How can you help me? And that was what changed everything for me because I had to now work with Oregon, the remand home, that how can I'll pay for his transport personally, let him just come to my school every day. And also when you see that child wants something, for themselves. And now he's the head boy of our school. And he got the best results in NECO from the school as well, from our school 2 years ago when he was junior YX. So I think he's even seeing that I can actually do this. There's actually a way out, and then he has now propelled other people to see the same thing as well. So I think that's really how it just starts.
Fantastic. Let me ask you 2 questions, Damny. First will be, tell us how your academy operates. I think part of what we read out initially is that you have about a 500 population of students. Is that correct?
300.
300. Okay, so how does it work? Primary and secondary school, and then how do you access funding? I know that you work with Providence Bank, and Providence Bank supports a lot of initiatives, intellectual, creative, the Wole Soyinka poetry things, practically everything. How does it work for you? How do you access funding? Then more importantly, too, so that you can take it together, you've mentioned the issues of correctional centers quite a bit here. What have you found out over time in all the Lagos correctional centers where you have also picked pupils and students, and what would be your advice to Lagos State government and other governments in Nigeria in terms of how to deal, with this situation that is confronting us, day, night, every time?
Yeah. So the first question I would start with, so how does the school run?
Yeah.
So we're a secondary school. Okay. However, we do have a class that I call our preparatory class. And it's like a crash course of primary 1 to primary 6. So I started out to just do a secondary school. But then when a lot of these kids were coming, and again, because of my target audience, marginalized children, right, and people, they will come to JS1 to apply to JS1. They can't read, they can't spell. You can tell that they can't enter JS1. And I don't want to put you there when you can't. So I've said, and I can't send you back to your primary school because clearly the primary schools they are coming from, they don't have resources. They're not, again, quality education is a problem. There's already an issue with your background, right? I can't send you back there. That's not solving it. So I decided to create this class where I would take you from primary 1 to primary 6 for 1 year. After that 1 year, I'm believing you will do well, and then we take you to JS1. So Lisa then, secondary school is from JS1, JS2, JS3, SS1, and we're currently at SS2. Because when I started with just JS1, and then that started moving up, and then I would take kids every new year. So that's pretty much our structure. how do you access funding? Everybody always asks this because, what do you mean you don't receive school fees? So I always say Lisa is for the community, by the community. That's literally what, and you know, God has really helped and sustained us and used people. So from people donating, we have different campaigns. We have a sponsor a child campaign where an individual, yourself, you can just pick a child. I'm going to sponsor this child, you know, and it's about, you know, 200K to sponsor a child every year. So that covers their books, uniforms, textbooks, all of that, you know, materials. Then we have sponsor a teacher because my teachers aren't free. I pay every month. They are full-time staff. So again, where an individual, a corporate or a brand can say, we want to help with sponsoring Mr. Temida's salary, Mrs. Tony's salary every month, obviously, which is monthly. So those are things that help us. We also do a lot of partnerships with organizations, like you said, banks. You know, Access Bank has sponsored us in the past, Brass Bank, we have Lloyds Marine, you know, we have FMDQ. So we have so many partners that, you know, look to us to do our CSR projects as well. Providence Bank has also been very instrumental as well.
Let's leave the brand.
With supporting, you know, and we also apply for grants. You know, we apply for grants internationally as well. But again, this is, I guess, what we do is just creating awareness, you know, crowdfunding. Well, you know, again, we're moving to a boarding school. We're trying to raise 300 million because with boarding school now.
What informed your choice to want to move to a boarding school?
So that was always the goal. I didn't think it would happen this soon, but we were able to acquire a facility, which one was, you know, just made sense for boarding school. And I think for me, it became more and more important because, you know, like I think you had mentioned earlier, stability. They are doing well, we're doing well, but you know, imagine a child comes here, you'd have them for, you know, 7 to 4 p.m. and then they go back. It's almost like everything scatters. They have to come back again and recalibrate. And a lot of them, when they go home, they're not even reading because a lot of my kids are working. You don't see them change after school. They're doing, some of them drop newspaper, they're coming to school, child labor. And then they're taken care of, they have other responsibilities at home. So it's almost like a distraction. And then even with feeding, a lot of times I'm begging, please let's feed. But I'm also understanding that the parents are doing the best they can. They just don't have the capacity to, you know. So it's how can we, you know, how can we do that? How can we support and help them as well? So it was a thing of, at least we know that they are reading, you know, even with distance, a lot of kids are traveling from, and there's so many times I come to school, I'm seeing a child that's injured. What happened? I fell down the Okada, I fell down the keke, you know, and it's dangerous, you know. So again, it was, how can we just really bring everything we're doing so that we can also get the best results for them and also give them the best over the 6 years that they're in school. I don't know if that makes sense. So yeah, I think
that, you know, I'm one of the Lisa. I would like to say I'm a very proud Lisa giver or sponsor. It's something that I know because
probably on the advisory board too.
No. I'm a small girl. I'm a small girl. We're managing ourselves. But you know, I remember somebody sharing it. I came across it. Somebody shared on social media, and I was like, well, this is something I can do for my birthday. Is to sponsor a child, or in the start of the year, you know, Christmas, before everything goes away. Yeah. But I think very importantly, you said that children have been working, some of these children are working. I want to ask, what type of jobs are you seeing, you know, with these children working? But also importantly, Mr. Steve asked a question about the correctional facilities, and I want us to go back there about what advice you have for the government, like what you've observed, because I know well, I've observed, you know, in some of these systems, and I wanted to know what your observations were. What were these children saying are the reasons why they were not going to school, you know, public school, what their experiences were. Like, if you had the listening ear of the government and you're like, this is what is going on in the correctional facilities, what advice do you have? And also, what types of jobs are we seeing these children working?
All right, go on.
Okay, so I think what kind of jobs, I have someone that does like newspapers in the morning. Then, you know, when they're pushing for like water, like pure water and things like that, a lot of their parents, you know, work in markets or they're hawking. So they join them to do that. They are cooking and making Indomie, you know, those small stalls. So jobs like that, a lot of them as well are just waiting in their shops, maybe tailoring. So they're also tailoring. So things like that. And then with correctional facilities.
The newspaper that you mentioned, what was that about? You said they do some newspapers?
They deliver newspapers.
Oh, like vendors?
Yeah.
Really?
So I remember I had a boy, he was always sleeping in class. And we're like, what's happening? He goes, he's tired because he's already worked like a morning shift before he comes to school. So again, he's not even able to take in anything because he's tired, he's sleeping. you know, so things like that. And the pure water one is actually very popular. Cooking is very popular, like market hawking. Those are really, really popular in at least my students.
And we're talking about Lagos, right?
Yeah, Lagos. And, you know, because my school is on the mainland, Yaba, so that area as well. So those are things that are really popular as well. Correctional center, I would simply say two things.
Yeah.
Separation and rehabilitation. So I'll start with separation. When I went, the first thing that I noticed was that everybody was together. So whether they just found you on the streets, whether you actually did something, right, committed a crime, or whether you were a victim, everyone is together. And I think that is quite dangerous because you're putting everyone together, and someone that was maybe quote unquote innocent just was on the streets, maybe ran away from home. You're putting them with someone who has either been a victim or something or actually did something. So I think there needs to be a classification first, a separation. Because I've seen the dangers it's had on the, I don't want to say innocent, on the other ones. And it's actually not great. Then I think there actually needs to be intervention. It's not good alone to just say we have a place, we're keeping them in. What is actually being done? And I think that's where rehabilitation comes in. I think, again, the correctional centers, they're meant to be juvenile centers. We're meant to think about their future. We're meant to think about our future as a nation as well. And you can't think about the future of a nation without human capital, right? So, for example, everybody says, you know, insecurity in Nigeria. And for me, I was like that before, like, oh my God. But I realized these children are not educated. You put them in this facility. No intervention, no hope for them, just the same thing. You're calling them the same names. You're giving them that same, you're branding them as these things they've done or they've experienced. What brought them there? Then you release them to the world with nothing. They're hungry. They want, you know, what are they going to? They're going to resort to certain things that, you know, they shouldn't. So I think that's where rehabilitation really comes in. Whether it's academically or there's, you know, programs, right? Even psychology as well. That's why I am very big on therapy and guidance counselors. Yeah. What happened to you? How has this changed you? You know, one of my proudest moments with Lisa was when 3 of my boys from the correctional center, they came into my office one day and they weren't really happy. I was like, what's going on? They go, Ma, they are referring to us as Sabo boys. I don't like it. So there's a correctional facility, a remand home in Sabo. So I guess one of the teachers and the students, because they knew they were from there, they called them that. And they go, Ma, I don't want to be known as Sabo boys. My name is this, my name is that. And that day I made it sure that if you ever call Oregun boys, Sabo boys, Idi Araba girls, I will suspend you. And I think I was so proud because that was the day I knew that they were disassociating with their past. Because again, the more you brand them these things, they take it on as their identity, that this is just who I am. They've said that they said that this is my future, and they're going to become that thing. So I think also really just separating them and showing them there is another way. So that was my proudest moment because I was like, okay, what we're doing here, it's working, you know? And I think you see that now. Like now, I have students that give them food, bring them lunch, because the facilities don't give the boys or the girls lunch. They just come to school. I have a girl that her mom makes extra for her and she shares with some of the boys or the girls from the center. So I think that's just really important.
Fantastic. All right, Kachi.
That definitely is, Damny. Now, I wanted to talk about the age brackets for the kids that you're taking. You know, what would you say the age range usually is? Because you speak a lot about work. So I'd like to imagine, you know, how old are these kids that are working? Are they over 18? Are they below 18? And then second, with regards to their parents, because that becomes a major factor. You know, as much as we empower the kids, we train the kids, their parents also need some level of mind shifting as well. So is that something that, you know, you also make sure that you do hand in hand with what you do at Lisa?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's important. Obviously, every school has a PTA, but I call it PTP, so parent-teacher partnerships. And that was very important because I wanted them to know that this is also not a dumping ground. We're doing this together. We both love our children and we're trying to help them. And I think one thing was a shock to me. I just thought I was going to be handling the kids. It was a shock for me to understand that I'm actually really working with these parents. There's a huge renewal of mind and sensitization that they also have to, you know, go through. A lot of these parents also maybe didn't go to school as well. So I'm also having to show them the importance of education. I'm also showing them that there's another way. You know, when I hear somebody's working, I call the parents in and say, Mommy, this child can't be working. Mommy, leave this person. There's a season for everything. So I'm also really working very actively with our parents as well. You know, we have PTP meetings. We have open day. When a parent misses an open day, I make sure to call that parent that this is important. You must come. You know, so those are ways that we're just also trying to engage them as well. My age brackets with the school is obviously a GS1 student 9, so 9, 10, and then SS, you know, is maybe 16, but I do have 21-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, again, because they were out of school, they started late, and that, to me, I'm like, it doesn't mean your future has ended. If you want it, you can still. I always tell them, time is just whatever you make of it. So at least you find that you might see a 20-something-year-old in just 2 or just 3, but that's okay. And I think I'm also really proud of them that, because at first it wasn't easy, but I'm happy that they've put all of that aside and they're focused on my own future, where I'm trying to go to. And again, all the kids that are working is below 18. You know, so which
the law is also, you know, very much against anyway.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, Damny, you know, you've done very well. But just before we let you go, I mean, I heard you say that you took some of the students to a PAU, Pan-Atlantic University. Was that deliberate? Why didn't you take them to Unilag or LASU? Was that a commentary on what you have observed of education in Nigeria, given that you probably studied abroad?
Yeah, I've actually taken them to Unilag as well. I think that was just the first example. But no, I've been taking them to Unilag, some of my staff, teachers as well, so it was even easier. We've gone to Unilag twice, and then PAU once. But I think for me, it's just letting them know what is possible. I'm always saying them, everybody's, at least, we're all going to go to university. And I think that's actually one of the things I'm working on now, because they're going to be graduating from SS3 very soon, our first graduating year. And I'm already looking for partnerships across different schools in Nigeria and out of Nigeria, so that the education doesn't stop in secondary schools. The one that wants to go to university, I'm trying to get slots, you know, in different universities, from Unilag to Covenant to PAU to a University of Sheffield or Manchester. You know, I'm always saying sky is the limit, you know, for them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I think she's like the Mona Lisa of our time, isn't it? Damny, Feyide, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. For doing well. You're doing great.
Thank you so much.
Honestly, changing lives, and especially lives of children, is the only thing that's going to save Nigeria. So
Absolutely.
Shout out to you for Let It Shine Academy.
Thank you very much.